He turned water into wine, I turned whiskey into songs. Too many second chances, too many too far gones. Gave me grace along the way, took my heart and led me home. Don't you see, it's a God thing for me. Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.
Welcome to the Heartland Journal podcast with Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Welcome to our very special Heartland Journal Summer Series, where we have dug deep into the archives and unearthed some of our most popular and even controversial shows of the past, many that haven't seen the light of day in years. We hope you enjoy what we have in store for you. Until I return to my post as host of the Heartland Journal podcast, this is Steve Abramowitz wishing you a safe and sane summer. And as always, glory to God. Howdy, y'all. Welcome back. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. On this show, we are focused on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community and lovers of truth. Welcome to our People in the News episode, where I interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with congressional candidate for the mighty Washington, D3, Joe Kent. Joe Kent is a retired 20-year veteran of our nation's special forces and a widower, raising his two young sons in Yacolt, Washington State. Now, here's the tragic part. I'm looking right here at his website, joekentforcongress.com, and there's an absolutely gorgeous picture of Joe and his kids and his wife, Shannon Mary Kent, who also served and was killed while fighting ISIS in Syria. Thank you for her service. Following his military service and work as a field operative in the CIA, Joe served as a foreign policy advisor to President Trump and as a project manager for a technology company before retiring on his military pension in January of 2023 to devote himself full-time to the campaign. Joe's candidacy for U.S. Congress is focused on restoring common sense Republican values and defeating the woke extremist Democrat Congresswoman Marie Perez. Well, he didn't pull that off, and we're going to talk all about it. Mr. Kent, first, always thank you for your service, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. I'm in Nashville today. Y'all having a nice summer?
Yeah, it's actually pretty nice. We have had a kind of a mild summer, and so far so good with no wildfires.
All right, good. The smoke can be dreadful. We've gotten some actually here in Tennessee, of all places, all the way down from Ontario. So we know, but not as bad as I know you know from Washington. And how are the boys?
They're doing good, keeping me busy. So 8 and 6, so full-time summer building tree forts and swimming in the lake and all that good stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. They're gonna have a good summer then. So I plan to release the show on Mill Creek View in Florida and Tennessee, where I'm regularly the host, and your home state, of course, of Washington. So tell us about Yacolt for folks that never heard of it and will probably never get to go there. Tell us about your district.
Well, you've probably never heard of Yacolt. It's just to the north of Battleground, and I'll kind of bracket you in. Battleground is just to the north of Vancouver. Vancouver is basically on the other side of the Columbia River from Portland, Oregon. So we are Southwest Washington. Vancouver's our biggest city. It's somewhat of a sister city to Portland, Oregon. A lot of folks will kind of commute across the river into Portland who live in Vancouver. But the rest of the district is very rural. It's former timber country. So the logging industry and everything that's happened to the logging industry has deeply affected the Pacific Northwest, but especially our district, whether it's excessive environmental regulations or it's the offshoring of a lot of the factories that used to process the timber that's really impacted the district as well. We actually go all the way out to the Pacific Ocean, and then we go up into the Columbia River Gorge out to the east. But it's by and large, I'd say a rural district, still very conservative. So it's a great place to live, kind of a unknown pocket of conservative common sense values on the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, and it took me a couple years to figure out that there is a Vancouver, Washington, not related to the Vancouver, Canada, which is up there in British Columbia, although it is right next to Portland, and Vancouver, British Columbia, Portland, Seattle have all had a really rough go of it the last 5 years. So we're going to talk all about that. And of course, where you are, the economic situation has been very difficult. So your opponent in last year's primary election was an incumbent Republican Jamie Herrera Butler. She joined Democrats in D.C. and 9 other Republicans that are all gone now that voted for Trump's first or second or maybe third impeachment. I can't remember. The voters obviously didn't like that, threw her out, and you beat her by about 1,000 votes. All good. But the Democrat, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, a Marxist, I believe she actually ran on that, won 31%, 18,000 more votes over you. Head to head, she won the general by 50.1 to 49.3, very close. So the 2021 Cook Political Reports PVI, which stands for a partisan voting index, had your county, but not your county, your district, R+4. In 2022, the same thing, R+5. She supports abortion access and policies to counter climate change. Hard to believe the farmers of Southwest Washington like that. I saw a picture of her at an outdoor event, and even the MIA junior senator from Washington, Maria Cantwell, looked like she couldn't believe she had to be working with this person. What's your assessment of her so far?
So look, she ran basically as a moderate Republican. If you go back and you look at the way that she presented herself and the things that she would say on the stump, she basically said that she's a moderate Republican. But now that she's been in office and she actually has a voting record that she can't hide from, she's voting for absolutely the craziest parts of the Biden agenda, whether it's letting biological men into your daughter's dressing room, whether it's supporting abortion up to the 9th month, depriving life-saving care to a baby that survives an abortion. She voted against that. Absolutely insane. She's voted for pretty much every single Biden economic policy that's destroying the middle and the working class right now. Our gas out in Washington State's over $5 per gallon because of these policies, because of Biden's war on domestic energy. She supports basically open borders. Our district's right between Portland and Seattle, so failing sanctuary cities that are an absolute vector for fentanyl trafficking, human trafficking, crime, all types of crime, especially violent crime, is up by about 60% in the district. And these are a direct reflection of the policies that she's voted for since she's been in office. So the difference between 2022 and 2024 is that she actually has a record. So she can say moderate. There's actually just a piece out. I don't know when this is going to air, but this morning there was a piece out in the Washington Post where they talk about how moderate she is, but they never talk about any of her votes. So she's got a lot of friendly media that says moderate, moderate, moderate over and over again. But my job on this campaign this time is to just highlight how radical that she truly is. And I think a lot of folks are kind of waking up to this. I had about 13,000 Republicans in my district who, because of the hard-fought primary, they either left my race blank on the ballot or they voted for the Democrat. It's a byproduct of a hard-fought primary. A lot of folks like the incumbent, but I think we're going to be able to bring back those Republicans, really unify the Republican Party, if for nothing else, because the Democrats are so absolutely radical right now.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Orange County 4 years before that. Where they ran on a moderate, they acted very progressive, and Orange County said, what did we do? That's the end of that. So I hope that goes your way. I had Dino Rossi on this show a while ago. Wow. He's the poster politician for election integrity problems in Washington. Do you think the election against Ms. Perez was clean?
Look, in Washington State, the deck is just stacked against us. We do massive unsolicited mail-out ballots. And by that, I mean, if you go to the DMV to receive any kind of service, you are automatically registered to vote, and a ballot with your name goes out on it. No verification if you're an eligible voter or if you're a U.S. citizen. And then we have the closed code tabulation machines, which you're not allowed to audit ever. No one can ask questions about these closed code tabulation machines. You know, on election day here, we had most Republicans chose to vote on election day, and we had about 9,000 ballots that were thrown out due to signature verification issues. So look, it's a massive issue. But what we have to do as Republicans is we've got to mirror what the Democrats do as far as ballot harvesting goes. A lot of Republicans don't want to ballot harvest. They don't want to get out and early vote. It's completely legal here in Washington State, and the Democrats do it very effectively. So we've got to start fighting on that battlefield, beat them at their own game, get a ballot in front of every single Republican that we know supports our values. Another number I'll give you is we had 60,000 Republicans who showed up on the presidential cycles in 2016 and in 2020, but who failed to cast a ballot in the midterm. They did not vote at all in 2022. So we've got to get ballots in front of these people. If we do that, then I think we're going to win by a large margin.
Yeah, they really didn't sense the urgency and understand what the stakes. Was there anything unusual about your election in 2022 from times past? Same thing happened to Tiffany Smiley that ran against senior Senator Patty Murray, who is now number 2 behind Chuck Schumer. So there was a lot at stake in her election. Polls showed her tied going into election day, or the only one I trust, Trafalgar, but she won 60-40, or I should say she lost 60-40. Very suspicious.
Statewide is very challenging. I mean, Tiffany ran a really strong campaign, strong conservative platform. The problem that she faced that I don't face is King County, the Seattle area and the suburbs of Seattle. I think it's just hard to calculate, and Dino Rossi can probably do a better job of explaining it than I can. It's hard to calculate how effective the Democrats' ballot harvesting strategy is in those places. They seem to be able to pull an unlimited amount of ballots out of King County, and that's probably what happened to Tiffany. I'm sure Dino has his own theory, and he's really well informed on that. But look, down in our district, yeah, we had the signature verification issues, but really, if you just look at the low turnout, that's one of the biggest hurdles, and it's something that we can actually address directly by having a ballot harvesting strategy. So I think going into 24, every Republican has just got to really embrace early voting, embrace getting out there and making sure everyone that they know in their personal lives, at their church that shares values with us, has actually cast a ballot. I talk to people all the time in the district who tell me like, "Oh, hey man, if I would have known it was going to be so close, I would have voted." It's like
too little, too late. Yeah.
If I had a buck for every time, or if I had a vote for every time I'd heard that, I'd probably be sitting in Congress right now. And that's unfortunately the Democrats don't suffer from that because they get out there and they chase those ballots. And so Republicans, we got to do the same.
Yeah, don't say a buck for every time. You'll get in trouble with the FEC and then they'll come after you.
That's right.
It's still unbelievable to me that you, Matt Larkin in Bellevue, I don't know if you know that guy, Vincent Cavalieri in newly drawn District 1 at the time in Mill Creek, and Tiffany lost by such large margins. It was, to be honest, it was the final straw for me, knowing my time was up in Washington. Has anything been done by Republicans since November 2022 to fix the voter integrity issues like drop boxes? They're still there. Mail-ins, which is still there. You actually get a prepaid stamp that the taxpayers pay for, but still turnout is low.
We have a lot of really good election integrity work being done at the county and the state GOP level. We have our people that are in all the county auditors' offices. But unfortunately, look, I mean, we can have all the activists involved, and we should have activists involved at those levels. But the systemic problems of mass unsolicited mail-out ballots, everything that you described, and the closed code tabulation machines, we're not going to be able to get rid of those until we unfortunately flip Olympia. And that's going to be very challenging to do. But again, this kind of goes back to my original point of we've got to get everybody that we know that shares values with us to get out there and vote. The east side of Washington is as deep red as it gets. If we get all of them to vote, I honestly believe that we can combat King County. It's going to be a knife fight, but I think we can do it. But yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, look, the crazy thing about 2022 and 2024 is we all know post 2020 how bad this system is, but in order to change this system, we have to win within it. That's why again, the ballot harvesting is something we've just got to embrace.
Yeah, because the after the fact legal means and lawyers, that obviously doesn't work. I was shocked, Joe, tell me how you feel about this. I was shocked how low the registration among Christians is in Washington. Not just, don't vote, but even register. 25%. They're a natural Republican constituency down where you live, R+5. You would think they would be engaged. They would be activists. Is there no outreach to them? Only way to change one party rule is with them, in my opinion. 1 in 3 Christians doesn't vote consistently.
Yep. That's a major issue. If we get all these Christians to actually vote, I think we're going to take back the state in a very big. We're definitely going to take back my district, leaning conservative, but the rest of the state is in play as well. Right now, we are doing outreach. So all of the major GOP parties in my district are doing targeted outreach to religious leaders, to the Christian community. And we've had mixed results. We've had a handful of churches that have gotten really involved. When we were trying to ballot cure, we had a bunch of churches that really stepped up in a very big way. We've got a bunch that have come to us since 2022 and said they want to be involved. These municipal elections that are taking place in this off year, they're really involved in. But there's still, unfortunately and tragically, there's still quite a few who either say, hey, look, I don't want to mess with my nonprofit status, so I can't do politics. Or there's unfortunately the other ones that are saying, like, look, this is a worldly problem, and we're here to deal with, the eternity. We're here to deal with the religious world, and we draw a strong line between them. So we're doing as much outreach as we possibly can. I think the grassroots of the church, though, is hopefully starting to wake up. I feel like they are. I go around to a bunch of different churches. And people are starting to be very frustrated because it's right up in your face in Washington state. Even if national politics, you hate talking about it, the Washington state politics, especially the new policies that say that the public schools can essentially kidnap your children away from you if the kid says that, hey, I want a sex change, hey, I want an abortion, and my parents don't support it. The fact that Washington state can come and take your kids, this is waking up a lot of folks in the religious community. So we've just got to turn a lot of that anger into voter registration and voter participation.
You know, just when you think it can't be any worse for the churches, COVID comes along and shuts them actually down, won't let them assemble. And yet that wasn't enough in November of 2022 to get them motivated. I don't know what is. Maybe you're right. Maybe the SR, which I want to talk to you about in a minute, 5599 will finally get them to say, oh, now they're coming for the kids, not just our church. Then I care more about that than that. But man, it's disappointing. But there are 3 Republicans, including you, for November 2024 against Perez, unless something's changed that I didn't read about. Not a single incumbent lost last year nationally, which is interesting, not one. Do you think the vote will be split and she'll walk in again? Or do you have some internal polling maybe that can give us some optimism that this is your chance?
You know, I think the lesson coming out of the last primary, I was going up against a 12-year incumbent backed by the full weight of the Republican establishment nationally and locally. And I beat her. And we also had other Republicans that were really strong on that ticket as well. And I had a slim margin that I beat the incumbent by. We have the jungle primary system does not work in our favor. So I think the big lesson learned as Republicans in 2022 is that if we are divided, the Democrats will win. So I've already been endorsed by 5 of the 7 county parties in my district. We should have the 6th one locked up here by the end of the month. Hope we're working on getting the state endorsement as well. So Republican unity is key. I'm really not focused on the other folks that are in the race right now. As far as Republicans, my sole focus is on Marie Perez. If people can vote for whoever they want to vote for, but we've got to keep our eye on unifying the Republican Party, especially post-primary. Our primaries are really late out here. They're in August. For some reason in Washington state, it takes them 2 weeks to count the dang ballots. So we don't have a declared winner usually until the 2nd week of August. That was the case last time. So we've got a very short window for a general election. So the more that Republicans stab each other and have a bloody primary, the more the Democrats benefit. So my sole focus is on Marie Perez.
Yeah, and I would bet on the Green Beret to come out of that scrum anytime. Was the Washington GOP, the state now, helpful to you last time?
Post-primary, they were. Pre-primary, they were helping to defend their incumbent, which, I get it. They're defending their incumbent. I think they should have been a little bit more aggressive about censoring her, but hey, that's all in the past. Doesn't really matter. Post-primary, they did what they could. Unfortunately, the national level Republicans, the NRCC, the RNC, they looked at really bad polling and they told me that I was going to win by 6 points. So they weren't going to give me any support, but we knew how brutal the primary had been. I had $14 million spent against me. Depending on what kind of voter you were, you either heard that I was a secret socialist or that I was like a rabid Nazi, or something in between. Like 14 million buys you a lot of negative press. So we came after the primary and we said, hey, look, we need help. We need a couple $1 million because I was flat out of money. We raised $3.5 million last cycle, all individual contributions, but we used it all getting through the primary. So at the end of the primary, when they're like, congratulations, you're the Republican nominee, I was like, thanks, man, I need money. My staff's just worked for a month without any pay. We're in debt. And the NRCC and the RNC were like, hey, start measuring the drapes in your Congress office because you're going to win. So we didn't get a ton of support nationally post-primary, but the state party did everything that they could, but they had limited resources as well. I think this year the state's going to take a much more proactive role, get us some field organizers down to the district to help us knock on doors. I think post-22, there's been a real big change in the county GOP parties and the state GOP. We're seeing a lot more grassroots folks. The precinct strategy program that Steve Bannon advocates to get more grassroots patriots involved in the GOP, that is alive and well in all of our counties. We've even flipped some of the county leadership using the precinct strategy. So I think 24, I'm optimistic about the direction of the state party for 2024.
Okay, good. Because I know it was kind of left also in shambles, not a lot of money there. And since they lost their incumbent, the National Republican Committee probably didn't embrace you as much as we'd have liked to. And then they had to circle the wagons against the president. I interviewed this cracks me up. I interviewed the mainstream Republican Party president, the new one. And what they ultimately did in this time is they moved from a very industrial part of the state over there in Marysville, near where Steve is in Linwood, and over to Moses Lake, which is much more rural, much more eastern near Spokane, kind of more like your demographics. And it cracks me up because in the age of MAGA, there is such thing as a named brand party called mainstream. The president said they wanted to be centrist to build more support. Well, that would be considered Republican, but they're mainstream Republicans. Do you think going to the middle with how radical the Washington state Dems are is a good strategy or bad?
I think you just have to articulate what your views are. I get painted as some kind of a like far right radical guy all the time, which I think is kind of funny because if you look at the Trump America First policies, we are much more populist and nationalist than your classic conservatives. I think we've got to really hold strong on our principles as far as like, are you pro-life? Yes, I'm pro-life. Like the Republicans that have a really wishy-washy answer about that, I don't think it wins us anybody. As a matter of fact, it just sows doubt with that strong Christian base that we need to come out and vote for us. But I think it's just really key to articulate what you believe in. I believe in the Constitution. And I did like over 300 in-person town halls during my candidacy last time. I'm going to do about the same this time too, so people can come and they know exactly where I stand on the issues. I don't really agree with this whole. We need to be way more. We need to basically be Democrats, but with tax cuts. That's kind of where a lot of the mainstream Republicans are. They basically say they like all the Democrat policies. They don't want to fight on any of those nasty social issues. They don't want to protect our daughters for some reason. But every now and again, they'll support some good tax cuts. Like I don't see how that's any different than what the Democrats are offering, and I don't see how that inspires anyone to come out and to vote.
That's right. I tell you, if you move to Tennessee, you'd be a winner for sure. Washington, you're going through what you're going through. Do you think? Well, this is a hard question to answer, I think, but I'll just throw it out there. Do you think any Republican can ever win in Washington with all of the things we just talked about?
It's going to be hard. I'm pretty optimistic. I don't know if you guys have had Simi Bird on the show, but you should.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Simi's fantastic. I mean, the way that Simi is getting out there and engaging with people, and that guy is in Seattle, I think, pretty much every week. And he's talking to communities that Republicans just haven't talked to for a very long time. And he's out there and he's having real conversations. And Simi is a great example of a guy who he'll tell you exactly where he stands. And this is how he feels, and this is why he feels that way, and these are what his policies are, and it's all very common sense. So I think with a guy like Simi who's willing to get out there and really, really do the work and go to those hard spots in King County and not just stay in the friendly Republican areas of Washington State, I think we have a chance. Now, is it going to happen overnight? Is it going to happen in one election cycle? I think it might be more of a gradual fight, but the worst things get in Seattle. I think we are eventually going to see a tipping point because people are going to say, hey, this city's been completely destroyed. I thought that was going to be 2022, frankly. So, is it going to happen in just 2 more years in 2024? I don't know. But I think as long as we keep chipping away at it and as long as we stand firm in what we believe and we articulate how common sense our approach is and we highlight how radical they are, because the Democrats, they're either doing one of two things. They're lying about how moderate they are, or they're pointing the finger and being like, but those guys are Nazis, those guys are racists, and that somehow bullies people into not being able to vote Republican. So I think it's going to be a grind, it's going to be a fight, and we've just got to go have those hard conversations.
Okay. So Dory Monson, rest his soul, and I used to complain about the press. Did the press give you any support last time in the state? And you were on Fox a lot. Hannity, I believe, was maybe your go-to. Do you think that
Tucker
helped? Yeah. Oh, Tucker? Yeah. Okay.
Tucker,
Who's unemployed now. Did that help or hurt your campaign in Washington State to be associated with, the evil empire of Fox News?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, really, Tucker was the only Fox show that would consistently have me on. Again, it's the kind of that split, I think, in the Republican Party. Tucker was very America first, very nationalist populist, especially being against any more foreign interventions, very pro working class. So I was branded as one of the Tucker people. That helped me a lot as a insurgent candidate going against an incumbent Republican. That helped me a lot in the primary. It definitely helped me with fundraising. I mean, Tucker having me on prime time, that's nothing that I could afford to buy on my own as a guy relying on people giving me 10, 15 bucks here and there. So I'm very grateful for the time that Tucker gave me. I'm on Bannon's War Room quite a bit too. That's an activist audience that's done a lot for me as far as fundraising goes. the media landscape in the Northwest, I mean, nationally, it's challenging for Republicans, period. But in the Northwest, it's very difficult. I mean, I have Lars Larson. I had Dory for a while. We got Ari. We got Jason Rance. And that's about it. I mean, Clark County Today is a local paper that does a pretty good job of being fair and balanced, but the rest of them are absolutely hostile. So I've given probably hours of interviews to these people.
Be sure to lump the Mill Creek View in with that group, because we are not hostile. We are supportive.
You guys are not hostile. Yeah, you guys too. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all kinds of podcasts, because that's how we actually get our message out. Because like the traditional media of print and the traditional broadcast media, they are just going to paint us as radicals every single time. And unfortunately, that has a repetitiveness to it that does have a good deal of penetration of people, unfortunately.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, outside of Washington State, if you think cable news is bad with the CNNs and the MSNBCs, try listening to the Como King or the other one, I can't remember, in Seattle, and you will get nothing but, they can't even get the weather right, actually. Box scores is about it for the Mariners. Everything else, totally wrong. What difference does that make? All right, so let's back to your opponent here. She just sponsored the Corrective Action Report Oversight and Accountability Act, CAROA, whatever. Unanimously passed, which is nice, the House Small Business Committee. It requires all agencies to include information in reports that provide clarity about small businesses' participation as federal contractors, and will hold the agencies accountable for hitting their small business benchmarks. Is that the way for feds to identify their political rivals and give conservative companies a hard time?
Yeah, I mean, basically, she just wants to pass more government regulations, and we all know how well government regulations treat small businesses, treat the trades, treat our natural resources industries. But she put that forward right after she voted against the REINS Act. The REINS Act would have started clawing back a lot of government red tape. It would have made Congress actually vote on more government regulation, as opposed to letting all these different three-letter agencies just basically pass new laws through executive fiat. So she voted against that. That would have been a lifeline for our timber industry, for the fishing industry, for small businesses. And then she does this performative bill that basically is going to help the federal government identify who those pesky small businesses are that don't adhere to their values. So yeah, this is pretty classic for the type of legislation that she's been sponsoring.
Yeah, and unfortunately unanimous. So can't just blame her, but she was the spearhead of that. She ran as an auto shop owner who describes herself as an independent-minded Democrat. Do you think in 2024 being associated with Trump will help or hurt you?
For me, I think honestly, people just need to come and hear what I stand for. Some people like Trump, some people don't like Trump. I am a Trump supporter. I'm willing to say, why. I'm willing to articulate why I'm a Trump supporter with them. But at the end of the day, look, in 2024, by the time our election really kicks off, there's already going to be a Republican nominee. The Republican food fight over who the Republican nominee is going to be over. It's going to be decided. And it's going to be a matter of that Republican versus Biden and the Marxist left. So really, for me, it's like we've got to unify together. If you don't like Trump, if you don't like this Republican or that Republican, look, there's no middle ground. You're not getting your preferred exact candidate. The other option is Perez. The other option is Biden, and the continued downward spiral of our nation. So, I mean, look, I'm not one of those guys that's going to say like, well, I think, Trump did some good things, but he was kind of like, look, I'm a Trump supporter. I think he's the best president of my lifetime. I'm happy to articulate why. I'm very much not like in the cult of everything the guy does is right. I think he is a unique person for these unique times that we're in. But I also understand that some people really don't like him. The mean tweets and the personality really piss some people off. It is what it is. But isn't that everywhere in life? Do you always get along with everybody you work with? I think sometimes we have a very childish view of the way that we look at politics and the way that we view our politicians. But I don't think being associated with Trump will hurt me. Trump carried the district by about 5 points in 2020, and then even a little bit more in 2016.
Yeah. And I used to say all the time, hey, when Obama was running the first time, I said, no, let's skip the Carter years and go right to the Reagan years of prosperity. And this time it's sort of like, no, let's skip the Biden years, which is like the Stalin years, and go right to peace in our time. But that's another story for another. You can use that on the campaign trail if you want. Okay.
That's pretty good, actually.
I got about 5 minutes left. And he proved it. Reagan had to prove it himself, but he did. You being former CIA, how do you feel watching these hearings from whistleblowers like Steve Friend exposing the abuses to our rights the CIA and FBI have been engaged in for Almost 20 years.
It's absolutely disgusting, and the CIA and the vast majority of the intelligence community, especially the FBI, needs to be absolutely gutted. Many of these organizations and agencies need to be completely and totally disbanded and broken up. A lot of people, especially the notorious 51 spies who lied about the Hunter Biden laptop, they need to have their security clearances stripped. They need to be actually prosecuted for lying. If I would have done anything like this as a paramilitary operations officer, if I would have abused my access to classified information, to classified tools I'm supposed to use to protect America against my political rivals, I'd be in jail. You wouldn't even know my name. They'd have thrown away the key and locked me up. So we've got to have accountability. We've got to make sure that the American people can trust their intelligence community and that they have a good deal of oversight. And look, this is clearly Congress's purview. Congress should be going through right now using the appropriations process to actually get the American people transparency and accountability. The problem is we don't have enough people in Congress that understand how these places work. Most people, members of Congress, have never had a security clearance before. So you get these very impressive looking CIA folks or generals that come in there and they say like I can't reveal my sources or methods, otherwise we'll compromise national security and we'll cause another 9/11. And the congressman, the senators, like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be responsible for that. And so they continue to give these organizations unlimited amounts of power. We need people who understand
and records amounts of money. Yeah,
exactly. We need people who understand how all of this works. I mean, just looking at the way the FBI has targeted conservatives and looking at everything around January 6th, there's very specific questions that I would have and very specific reforms that I would be happy to author that would bring about some accountability to our intelligence community. But look, they're absolutely out of control, and we've got to do something to rein them in. I think we need another church committee 2.0, to have some significant reforms.
Yeah. All right. Well, what about Kevin McCarthy from California? The new speaker. We wouldn't have those hearings if he didn't allow for them. But do you think he's doing a good job? He would have been your boss had you won.
I think he is doing a really good job. Honestly, I was pretty skeptical about the type of job that he was going to do going into this Congress, but everything that's taken place since he's taken power, he's got a very slim majority right now. So I know there's a lot of criticism on the right that he's not doing enough, but his majority is like what, 7 seats. So he's got a slim majority right now. For how slim his majority is, the way that he's been using oversight, I think is very impressive. I think he's fighting very, very hard. He's been out there. He's been really, really sharp on all of the key issues on the government overreach, the abuse, the weaponization of the Department of Justice. I think they're doing a great job. They put together the budget package that they put together that the Democrats ultimately rejected, that Biden rejected, was extremely reasonable. I know it wasn't everything me as a more Freedom Caucus minded guy that I wanted, but it was a reasonable package that had significant government reforms in it that we've been after for decades now at this point. And the Democrats really exposed their hand by going against that. So, look, all things considered, I think Kevin McCarthy is doing a really strong, he's performing very strongly as Speaker of the House.
Okay. And his majority is a little bit less thin than Pelosi's, and she impeached the guy 3 times. So, and they tried to hold McCarthy to some strict concessions to get their vote for speaker. Yeah. I'm betting that had you won, you would have been one of those. Andy Ogles from here, he was one of those. But Gates and from Florida and Boebert from Colorado, they never did even give him their vote. Do you think he'll keep his promises, impeach Mayorkas, HHS, Garland at DOJ, but even Biden and Harris? Or does he need more reinforcements like you? Because when you think about it, the Progressive Caucus with Jayapal was a net 1 with your opponent Perez, and therefore the Freedom Caucus was a net -1 because you didn't get there. Do you think that's what's going to take to buffer that muscle, or can he actually do it in the next year and a half?
I think he's going to do it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think with the amount of evidence that they've found so far in these committee hearings, especially when you look at just how deeply compromised the Bidens are in places like Ukraine and how significant that is right now to everything that's happening on the world stage. I mean, the report that was just released yesterday by Fox and by the War Room about how the Bidens basically profited from Biden releasing to China. I mean, these are impeachable offenses right there. And so I think because of the work that Kevin McCarthy and the oversight committees have done, I do believe that they're going to move forward with some impeachments. There's an argument right now. I think, do we go and impeach Biden, or do we go after Mayorkas and Wray and these guys first to get more evidence against Biden? That's kind of a tactical argument. But overall, I think when they come back after Labor Day, I think we're going to see some more action on that front.
All right, I got time for just a few more. Unfortunately, I wish I could go on. This is fantastic. So Joe, I left Washington because I saw evil like SB 5599 before it had a name and a number, and opening little girls' locker rooms to biological boys, which are just boys. The word biological is a joke, but pretty much invented as a thing in Washington and Oregon. How do we put the genie back in the bottle and make Washington the wonderful place it was where I raised my kids from 1999 to 2022? That Dino Rossi race just happened to be in 2004, right there. Two recounts, he won, and they stopped the third, and she won by 130 votes out of 2.9 million ballots. It's been downhill for the Evergreen State ever since. What are we going to do?
My Bluetooth kind of malfunctioned there, but I'll do my best. I think I got the gist of it. Look, Washington State's completely radical. 5599, the kidnapping of our children. I mean, I think that this is going to be. I think that this is actually going to break the dam with a lot of people who haven't participated, or even a lot of independents and Democrats who might not like Trump. They might not like Republicans, but they can't vote for this. So I think as long as Republicans can fundraise enough, and unfortunately a lot of this does come down to money, can we fundraise enough to expose how radical these people are? Because there's Democrats like Perez who are hiding behind this rhetoric about being a moderate, but at the same time they quietly vote to support these policies. Like Marie Perez could have actually been a moderate and voted against allowing men into your daughter's dressing room, but she didn't. She went ahead and quietly voted along with it. She'll never talk about it publicly, but it's her public record. It's out there. So as long as we can get the funds to really expose that to people, I think we're going to be able to change the tide. But I mean, Washington State, it's insane right now. We've got a lot more work to do in Olympia if we're going to be able to do even the most basic things like protect our children.
All right, last question. Rep. Jayapal, right there next to you in Congress, is the head of the Progressive Caucus, full-on commie. I'm going to, there happens to be more of them than the Freedom Caucus. I'm going to go all the way back to my very first show and ask the origin story question of this show, okay? What is a Washington State Republican? What do they believe in?
That's a great question. So look, I think we believe in very basic things like fiscal responsibility, not spending more than we take in, energy independence so that people can afford to put gas in their cars, they can afford to put groceries on the table. We believe in law and order. We believe in having an actual secure border, preventing the flow of fentanyl coming into our country, pumping fentanyl into our communities. We actually want safe streets. We don't want open prisons like Jayapal and like Jay Inslee want. We want the police to be able to go out and proactively protect our communities. We don't want their hands tied behind their back. And we want to protect our kids. We don't want our kids to be sexualized. Every child should be able to go to our public schools. We pay a ton of taxes here. We pay a lot for our public schools. Every kid should be able to go to our public schools and get a decent education in the basics, as opposed to being sexualized. We don't need sexual content in our schools, and protecting our children should be a nonpartisan issue. I think we can get into more detail about foreign policy and about tax policy and all that type of stuff, but I think those are the three key tenets right there. Like, we support economic sanity, we support law and order, and we support protecting our kids. That's what a Washington State Republican is.
Well, God bless you, Joe. Thank you for coming on with me today. Really appreciate you. Wish you all the luck in the world to help make that a reality and turn that state back to some kind of moderation, because it really feels like we have about 48 states left in the union, and Oregon and Washington are not one of them. And California, of course, long gone. But we are at the end here. So please tell our listeners where they can go to find out more about you, follow your social media, and get involved in your campaign, most importantly.
Absolutely. Joe Kent for Congress, forcongress.com is the website. Anything people can give, even if you can only give $5, $10, $15, it actually helps me out a lot. The Democrats are already sitting on several $1 million. So go to joekentforcongress.com. Links to all my social media are on there as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks again, and have a great rest of the summer.
You too. Thank you.
Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.
So, but what did you think of Joe?
I thought he was great. Thank you for bringing him on. A solid-minded man and somebody who's taking his energy and using it for good. And yes, he's in a conservative area of Washington State, that battleground, that whole area. That's like a red zone, and Olympia doesn't like their.
Yeah. When I was playing my hand at political consultant in Washington State, I kept pounding the table. The Christians and the union members who are angry with their union bosses and how the money is going to elect radicals like this, go there, talk to them, you'll win. They didn't do it. They all got wiped out. That's it for this episode. Thank you, Joe Kent, for carrying the America First banner, even in hostile Washington, behind the Emerald Curtain. And thank you for your service, and very sorry for your loss of Shannon. She was a patriot. This is goodbye for a little while. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, even while I'm gone, and pass it around, even in reruns. We only grow with your help, and still ad-free. Back in August. Enjoy the reruns. Maybe off air, we'll get that piece in our time. I'll work on it in Europe. Glory to God. At Heartland Journal, we don't just write about the Heartland, we're part of it. Whether you're in Montana cattle country, next to an Idaho data center in a drought, or from an Ohio manufacturing town, this is your platform. Got a story tip? A perspective we need to hear? We want it. This podcast and website exists because readers like you step up. Help us keep the lights on and the reporting honest. Visit heartlandjournal.com or our Substack, Heartland Journal, and subscribe to our ad-free premium content. Together, we're keeping authentic journalism alive in Middle America. I'm Steve Abramowitz, your host of the Heartland Journal podcast. Thanks for listening.
It's a long way to Nashville from that Napa Valley vine. Put me on a road less traveled. Lord, now I know why God knew I'd get there in His perfect time.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.
Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee. Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.